Okay, so you must be seeing right now the screen that I'm sharing, which shows a portrait, a bust of Auguste Renoir. And we are going to go today to the Renoir Museum in Cannes-sur-Mer. And the name of our lecture is called Renoir Revealed. And I hope you'll understand why I titled it this way. This lecture is part of the tour that we are going to have in March, and Maria, who's co-hosting today the lecture, is going to be the actual physical in-person co-host of the tour as well. She tried to placed a few jokes about me before I heard them. It was so unexpected that some of you didn't even get them, but there's going to be a lot of that. So as a warning to those who are touring with us, the husband and wife dynamics with a lot of humor is going to be also revealed. So let's watch that. Okay, so the museum is in Cannes-sur-Mer, and this is our itinerary. Roughly, we are going to have, of course, some day trips. Like, for example, on the way, we're going to stop in Saint-Tropez, and then when we are in Arles, we'll be going to Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, etc. So those details aren't here, but it gives you roughly our itinerary. And of course, Avignon, it's another stop, I mean, day trip that we're going to do on our last day. But this is day number 3. And on that day, we will begin the morning by visiting the Renoir Museum. And then we will have lunch at La Colombe d'Or in Saint-Paul-de-Vence, which is a perched village, not too far from Cannes-sur-Mer. At that point, we'll see how it goes. But last time we did the tour, we split the group into 2. Maria took group number 1 to Chapelle du Rosaire, also known the Matisse Chapelle. And I took a much smaller group, which was to stay with me to go along the streets of Saint-Paul-de-Vence. So we did a walking tour. So we're not able to reconcile the 2 at this point. If I can figure out a way to do both so that we don't have to split the groups, that would be great. But that's the plan. And then after that, everybody comes together at the cafe, depending how early we reconvene in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. And then from the cafe, we will go to the Fondation Mag in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. I can show you a few pictures. Saint-Paul-de-Vence, this is the perched medieval village. And as you come to the entrance of the village, you encounter this restaurant, which is legendary. And this is something that was on my bucket list. Every time I tried to go to this restaurant, it was always full because I had not taken the time to reserve, weeks or months before. It's very much sought after. And it started in the 20s with a fellow named Paul Roux, and he was friends with many artists. So all these artists came and dined there in exchange for their meals. They gave paintings. The restaurant then became an inn. He added 2 or 3 rooms for people to stay, and it became even more popular like that. And the collection now today includes works by Fernand Léger, Joan Miro, Georges Braque, Marc Chagall, Calder, César, and you name it. It's an absolute modern art museum of sorts, and you eat among these chefs-d'oeuvre, these masterworks that are all around the room. Now, if the weather is pleasant and nice, we will probably eat on the terrace, which is also very nice, and we will have the tiles that Georges Braque, I believe, no, Fernand Léger was commissioned to decorate the terrace, so we will see the tiles just next to us as we eat. But if the weather is not great, and I hope it's nice weather, we will be eating inside here. Now, if we eat outside, then I will bring you guys, those who are traveling with me, maybe 2x2, 3x3, and we'll go inside and sneak in and then check out the artworks. Last time when I did that, I basically didn't have time to eat because every time I was coming with a new batch of people to show this and that. So here is, for example, an amazing Picasso still life in the collection of this museum. By the way, all this artwork was stolen once in this past. I can remember the year which happened, but what I remember is that they were all recovered, but one. No, that's the other way around. Everything was stolen but one. In other words, the thieves had left one painting on the walls, and that painting happens to be a painting by Chagall. I guess the thieves really didn't care for Chagall. That's kind of embarrassing. So when we go today, there are some alcoves like this where you see pictures of those who have spent time in La Colombe d'Or, like Picasso here, and Georges Braque there. And I mentioned also Chapelle du Rosaire, the Matisse Chapel, a small church, a Dominican church, that was entirely designed, conceived by Henri Matisse. Murals, altar, the furniture, even the candles, even the vestments worn by the priest were designed. So all of these are exhibited in the chapel. There's a small museum section. So we will be splitting, like I said. So one group will see this little room and a few other rooms where things are exhibited. Others will be with me to go along the streets of Saint-Paul-de-Vence. And then we'll finish the day by visiting the Mac Foundation, an amazing building. I mean, when I was, I don't know, in my early 20s, this is the kind of house I was dreaming of building one day. It's so inspiring. And the architect is Joseph Louis Seft, the Catalan architect. And the collection changes all the time. They don't have a big space for a permanent collection, though they have amazing work. Like here, there is a Bonnard here. Here on the right side, all the way to the right here, it's hard to see, but there is this huge Chagall called My Life and other major pieces, lots of Giacometti's, etc. So we will come see this. The cow there was suspended over there. And here is Joseph Louis Seft, the artist, the architect of this amazing, really iconic building. By the way, those features that you see on the very top, they look like the horns of a bull. That's what I remember. I thought. So. Yeah, Cannes-sur-Mer. Yeah, well, mer in French means sea. So it's a village. It's a fishing village, former fishing village, obviously, with lots of art around. And this is the town that Renoir chose to build his villa. And like we did for Chagall, let's start by being introduced to Renoir's life. So here he is. This is how it looked. Kind of age 29, age 30, age 29. This is how it looked in 1870. Terrible year. It's going to be lots of war going on there. Very disturbing. But and he even joined the army at this point. He was fighting against the Russians. Well, he wasn't fighting, but he had enlisted to fight. Anyway, so here he is in 1870. He's definitely an artist, and then he is developing at this point a new movement in art called Impressionism. He is one of the perhaps two, maybe three fathers of Impressionism, definitely with Monet and maybe Degas, depending on who you ask. But this is how it looks, age 29, and this is how he looks, age 74, following a stroke and other debilitating health episodes. But the man is going to paint until the very, very last day of his life, just like Chagall. Despite crippling situations like this, those hands that you see are deformed and completely disabled actually by the stroke and also by arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, to the point where he would strap his brushes to his hands to be able to hold them, and he will paint that way. He will actually need the help of an assistant to switch brushes. It's not the only thing that the assistant gave him. A cigarette was also very often attached to his fingers, and so this is how he was painting basically many years in that villa that I showed you earlier. This is the late stage of Renoir, and a very impressive man, extremely dedicated to his art. But it didn't stop like this. I mean, he was born in Limoges. Limoges was known for his famous porcelains. Everybody wanted to collect those porcelains. I remember even my parents had, my grandmother had porcelain de Limoges. It's very, very famous. He was born there, and somehow maybe the air of Limoges entered his DNA somehow, because as a teenager, he starts working in a porcelain factory, not in Limoges, but in Paris, where his parents had moved. So that's where he's going to decorate these objects in a kind of a very classical style. And instead of just hanging out with his friends at lunchtime, because the factory was not too far from the center of town, he would go to the Louvre and he will admire the works of artists like Titian and Rubens and Fragonard and Boucher and Watteau. So all of those artists are very much present in his work, even his late work. So we'll see all that in just a minute. By the way, I want to take the opportunity to say that at the end of this lecture, we will play a little game where I will just show images of Renoir's work, and you will be asked to guess. You need to unmute yourself at that point, whether it belongs to his Impressionist period. There is another period called the Classical period, or it belongs to his late period. So if you want to take notes, I wouldn't hold you from doing so, but I guarantee you there's not going to be any grading going on at the end of the show. So here we go. We have Rubens, and he's also very well known for depicting female figures with a lot of excessive flesh, voluptuous almost beyond measure, and Renoir's also somewhat known for doing similar things. He is accepted actually in the Académie des Beaux-Arts, and then he's in the class or in the workshop of Charles Leclerc. That he attends the classes of Charles Leclerc, and Leclerc is definitely an academic artist. Look at the work that we are looking at. There's nothing avant-garde about this. You wouldn't even see in the brush work. It's extremely smooth. That's what they taught their students to paint, this academic style. But the young generation that was coming, very much influenced by Delacroix or Millet or Courbet, they weren't doing this style at all. In fact, in the class of Claire, Renoir is going to get to meet artists like Claude Monet, Alfred Sisley, Frédéric Basile. Even Jean-Léon Gérôme was there. Even the American Whistler was in that class. So imagine, Claude Monet. So this is where the first introduction with Monet is done, which is really very important because the two are going to start just collaborating and going traveling. They're going to go to a place called Fontainebleau, which is a big park today with lots of trees. The Barbizon School was developed in that region, and they knew that it was a very friendly area for artists. So he and Monet are going to spend time in Fontainebleau and all the park and the forests of Fontainebleau. Anyway, out of all of that, in the late 60s, he will start a romantic relationship with this lady named Lise Tréau. Lise Tréau, she's going to be Renoir's lover and model. So she's coming from very modest background, and many girls who kind of look good managed to make money by posing for many artists who were all around there. And then some of those relationships also became serious. So actually, this relationship is going to last 7 years between Lise and Renoir. So this is a portrait of Lise. He names it Lise with the parasol. So I don't know if you are aware of this, but in Paris or in France, or I guess almost in Europe, in order to make a career, you needed to show at an exhibit that happened in the Salon, the famous Salon de Paris. And it was, of course, judged. And the judges were definitely coming from the academic world, mostly. But among the judges, you also have Edouard Manet, for example. So, he wasn't that academic. So it was always a great quest by the artists to be accepted in this salon. And of course, many were terribly disappointed because there will be also a ton of rejection. Renoir applied a few times. He got rejected at least 2-3 times before, in 1868, Academy, he was accepted with this portrait. Well, if you look at this portrait, you may maybe think that it's impressionistic, but actually the brushwork is not. The subject matter is, this is a lady, well-to-do, just having a good time, just in some sort of a park, perhaps. So that's very kind of an impressionistic subject, but not the treatment of the paint. In any case, Renoir is very interesting because he's at this point really trying to make a living out of his painting. So he's trying so hard to get into the salon, to be recognized and to get commissions. And at this point, we are past the time where the monarchy, or I don't know, the church and all of these will do the commissions. No, those times are over. You had the bourgeoisie, people of the city with money, merchants and whatnot, who were the ones who were just fueling the art market. So he's trying to get portrait commissions. That's what he's after. So he's giving us this portrait, and he names it Lise with a parasol, hoping that he will fetch other portraits by those who are seeing and admiring this. Well, it's not going to be that easy. In the beginning, at least, he's not going to sell this, and he will have trouble. In fact, for the subsequent salon, he's going to be rejected so much that he's going to have enough of it. And Monet is having exactly the same problem, Claude Monet, and the two of them are going to decide, along with many others like Pissarro, like Morisot, like Sisley, even Cézanne. They're all going to decide that, okay, we had enough of this salon. We are going to open our own exhibition. Since we cannot rely on this thing, we can do our own. So they're going to use the studio of this very famous photographer named Nada, and they're going to take his studio and then make a big exhibit of this avant-garde artist. And this is happening in 1874, the first Impressionist exhibition. Of course, it wasn't called Impressionist when this happened. No, actually, they named this Société anonyme des peintres et sculpteurs et engraved. I mean, it was the most complicated title of this exhibit. Obviously, these people have no sense of marketing. But luckily, this piece was exhibited, and Monet had titled it Impression Soleil Levant, which means impression sunrise. He had used the word impression in the title. So when the critics came and saw this, they wrote such disparaging reviews, and then they said, there is no paintings here. We just have an impression of painting that's being exhibited here. And then the name Impressionist will stop right there. Okay, that's the origin of the name, given inadvertently by a critic who was trying to actually be mean to, to them, but actually coined the very name of this very famous art movement, which is by many art historians seen as the beginning of modernism. What's modern about this? Well, it's become so abstracted, and it's so reductive, this reduction, trying to capture the essence, uh, something so much deeper and fleeting than the plain depiction of the work. So that approach is so modern that it's totally understandable that Impressionism can be seen as a modern movement. But anyway, so here is our Renoir. Again, remember that he's trying to get commissions, and he's trying to get portrait commissions very much so. So Monet, he's doing lots of landscapes, and these people actually are starting to paint very fast, and they are using a new technology, a new invention, which is basically paint that's found in tubes. I mean, this was huge. You just didn't need to be in a workshop to be able to paint and then mix your own paints with the pigments and oil like the old-fashioned way that they will do, well, just maybe a decade ago or something. So in the 40s, in the 50s, this new invention allowed artists to take their canvases right out and paint en plein air, out the door. Okay? And of course, that's why the canvases tend to be so small, because they are painting, they have to schlep it out, and they have to paint it on an easel, and they have to bring it back, so they can't be very big. Why am I mentioning the size of it? Because this particular one, which is probably one of Renoir's most famous masterpieces, is actually quite big. Look at that. So the question is this the very one that he painted out the door? Or is there another version? Okay. Okay. Well, there is another version of this painting, which is much smaller, much more fitting for an outdoor setting, and could be perhaps the one that he painted right there. And then he took it to his studio and painted this version, which is very famous. So in that sense, this piece may not be 100% impressionist in its approach. Anyway, I am just creating a controversy here. It's probably useless and pointless, but it is a fact that impressionist paintings tend to be on an easel format and not this large, because when you're painting large like this, a little wind, it's hard to control this thing. I'm sure that some of the painters who are listening to this will agree with me. Anyway, what the Impressionists are observing is that shadows aren't gray, and actually picking up the colors that are surrounding. So all of a sudden, you're using kind of a bluish or violet shadow. So when you see those kind of shadows, you definitely know that you're dealing with Impressionist work. And also the contours are kind of fluffy and have a sketchy kind of an immediate quality to it. The other thing that Impressionists love is to capture the play of light. Light. It's really, really important. The other thing that the Impressionists do is that they tend to use a ground, which is the what's below behind the paint. They tend to use a ground that's of a light color, either white or light gray, whereas in old masters they will use a much darker ground, maybe ochre or just kind of a dark brown or maybe even black. So imagine Caravaggios and all that, how dark they are. Because when they have this darkness, like you see here, you kind of have a sense of depth or illusion of depth. So you can create that. But the Impressionists aren't trying to create something that gives the impression of reality, but they give us an impression of this fleeting moment and this fleeting light. So this is what they are after. Of course, their subject are those contemporary figures that you see here. Renoir does something else that's not 100%, I'd say, impressionistic in the sense that he actually stages the whole damn thing, if I may say so. Sorry, my language, but I mean, all of these people that you see in the foreground and all that, these are his friend artists. These are, some of them is probably his lovers and his friends, and they all come and they all pose there. But it's done in such a way that it seems extremely believable, as if he had just captured it, like almost like with the camera. So that's Renoir. He's a little bit fooling us a little bit, but at the same time, he's giving us. He's still trying to get into the salon. Of course, that's not working. So they keep doing these impressionist exhibitions on their own, since the salon is constantly rejecting them. So this is another one that he's going to offer to one of the subsequent Impressionist exhibition. This is the 1976 one, so I think it's going to be the third Impressionist exhibition. And then this is going to get such horrible reviews by the artists by the critics, that one of them is going to say that this looks like a pile of flesh in decomposition. A pile of flesh in decomposition. This is what they saw, because there's all these greens here, you see. But the reason why Renoir is giving us this green is because he's suggesting that the shadows that are projected here cannot be gray, but are being picked up by the greens of the vegetation that's surrounding it. So this is what he's after. Anyway, so this may be a little bit theoretic or a little bit analytic, but that was actually a scientific fact that shadows were not just plain old brown or gray. Here is another of his very famous masterpieces, and this one is actually in America at the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., another large format. So Renoir does the same thing. He stages this entire scene, which looks so natural, as if it was again captured by a camera. And here is Aline, his future wife. He's been dating her for about a year. It's a wonderful painting, extremely complex in the way he composed this. He put this together, and the dynamics are fascinating. If you kind of pay attention of the gazes of all of these players, you can actually start creating almost a play, because with what's happening, let me show you a little bit. So here she is looking at the dog and kind of careless about what's surrounding her. But then this fellow is keenly looking at her and observing her. I'm sure that he's developing some feelings for her. And then she is kind of looking at her in a kind of a dreamy way, maybe hoping that perhaps he'll catch her attention. But then you've got this fellow trying to get her attention. Look at all of this play that's going on that just appears. There is another one looking kind of toward us, lost in her own dreams. Maybe she's looking at him, maybe she's looking at us, not clear. And then she is looking at him from a distance while this fellow is talking to her. Oh, these two are definitely locked with each other. And then there's also more dynamics going on here. And this one just looking into the distance, not connected with anyone. Anyway, just all that to say that Renoir basically created a little little movie here, a little play here. And it's ironic because one of his sons, Jean Renoir, is going to be one of the greatest filmmakers in French history. So he already had that metteur en scène, like we say in French, which is the movie director. He already had those information very early on. Anyway, Renoir sensed that he has come to the end of what he can get out of the Impressionism, and he got tired of this ephemeral quality, not only of what he was capturing, but perhaps of the art itself. He didn't know whether whatever they were making so quickly was going to last for posterity, whereas the work of the Raphaels, the Renaissance artists, the Titians, they were in museums and they had that permanence. And Renoir wasn't sure that he belonged to that with all these Impressionist works. So he goes to Italy and then absorbs all of this that he was going to see in a place like, say, Florence or Rome. And he's going to emulate that and incorporate this classicism or these Renaissance traits into his work. And I mean, one of the great proponent of that type of work is, of course, Jean-Auguste Ingres. Ingres, again, the father of academic painting in France, in the sense that you can see the perfection of the skin. Again, zero sense of the presence of brushwork. It's incredibly smooth. And of course, with references to classical poses. I mean, this looks so much like a Titian. So all that to say that Renoir is going to be very much inspired by this and integrate some of these elements as much as he can. All right, we're not going to copy all this, and he will come up with this, which really blends the two styles in one. Like you can see in the background, the immediacy and the feathery quality of the Impressionist touch, but then in the foreground, the very Renaissance, very academic, very smooth treatment of the skin right in the foreground. So he is trying to come up with a way where the two can fuse in a new direction. So this direction is usually called the classical period of Renoir, whereas the earlier period was the Impressionist period. So now you are seeing a little bit what's happening. Whenever you have these very firm contours that almost suggest that it's been drawn, like, drawn, like draftman drawn. So then you're going to say, this is his classical period. And if you see that actually the edges are extremely feathery, and also the color aren't as realistic as you see here, then you're going to say either it's impressionistic or it could be also late. And we will see a little bit how we can differentiate all this. So when you have this kind of skin kind of perfected, and don't be fooled, other parts of the painting can be very impressionistic in approach, in the treatment. But the most important part, which is usually the face, because he's, again, after making portraiture, can be almost like a porcelain perfect. So look at this, for example. Here we have this face that looks really well contoured and well modeled and well presented. Is going to be very much in that style, classical style. And then all of this, where you see very clear brushwork. So he's mixing really two languages practically, but that works. It's not offensive. And so that's going to, so let's not get focused here only to this or to that. So it's mixing the two. So that's going to be the classical style. So let's try to see whether we'll be able to recognize later. I'll give you more of this, but I have to move forward with his life. Okay, then after that, he's going to drop that style too. But I think because it takes too much time, maybe for practical reasons, he's so prolific. He paints at such speed and at such quantity that my gut feeling is that that just takes too much time and he just wants to move on. So he's going to develop this late style. And also some of the figures are going to be a little bit more monumental, more almost sculptural. That's going to be the late style, where you're going to see the bodies are almost disproportionate, where the heads are slightly smaller. They needed to be a little bit larger than the body. So when you have those kind of discrepancies, subtle, I mean, obviously, that's definitely will belong to a later style. So here's, for example, as the years progress, this is 1906. He's definitely in the south of France at that point. Like here it is. Look at that. It's very tiny shoulders, huge hips, and very small head. So that's definitely very, very late style. So almost like post-late style. 1918, 1919, Renoir will die in 1919. So his painting is really at the very end of his life. So actually, this type of work that you see here, where it has gone somewhere kind of almost bizarre and may not be maybe to the taste of all, is actually quite controversial. There was definitely a split in his followers when they saw this kind of works coming out of his studio. Some people thought that this was extremely original and very avant-garde. I mean, we're talking people like Matisse, people like Picasso will love this, and then others thought that he had lost his touch and we didn't know where he was going with. Well, there is certainly today a big constituent of art lovers who think that Renoir shouldn't belong to museums. And just about 10 years ago, they created a movement called Renoir Sucks at Painting. I repeat, Renoir sucks at painting. This is the name of the art of this movement. And here they are in front of the Fine Arts Museum, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. This is happening in 2015. There was an exhibit of Renoir, I believe, and then they were just in front of it and they were asking for the works to be taken down. Either they thought it was too bad, or it was too offensive, that objectifying women, they said, or the paintings were really badly executed. And they were judging, imagine. Anyway, so they had this, the movement actually picked up so much that thousands of people started to actually post on their Instagram page pictures of themselves, like selfies, making these kind of lovely faces with works by Renoir in the background, as if to say that, oh my God, this is no way, or it's really gross type of thing. And others, I mean, you can go to the page. It's hilarious, all the expressions. So this guy's pulling his hair in exaggerated frustration over this. I mean, come on, let's not exaggerate. What is there to have a reaction like this? Somebody posted one of his really post-late works and then compared it to a glazed donut. I have to say, it is a little similar. This man has a sense of observation. But then, Renoir's great-granddaughter came into the mix and then wrote this on Instagram, says, when your great-grandfather paints anything worth $78.1 million, then you can criticize. I think she has a point. Anyway, why don't we go and visit the museum real quick, at least virtually, or parts of it. So this is the entrance. We buy tickets. They totally renovated this. When was it? In 1913? Oh, no, 2013, something like that, 2014. So for a little while, the Renoir Museum was closed. I would visit my dad. We lived in Nice. And we would wait for this to reopen. So it finally reopened, and then we were almost there very soon after. So this must be around 2013. And then here is my dad. Well, the reason why he's making his face is because he's faced now with the stairs. He's like, don't they have an elevator here, son? He says, there's even an elevator in my apartment building. How come they don't put it? Okay, so he didn't want to climb the stairs. So I had to just take his arm and then just help him out. So it's So I visited a lot of museums with my dad. He was a great trooper. I mean, he's in his like almost mid-90s here. It's just quite amazing. He was such a trooper. So the property is called Les Collettes. That was the Domaine des Collettes. It used to be, yeah, it used to have all of these. It was a olive um, tree orchard. Okay, and even before he purchased it, he will come here and he will paint here because there are some amazing views of the village. And then when it was for sale, it almost was sold to somebody who was going to cut all of these trees. So when he found out about those, he decided to purchase it. That's how he bought it. And he was also developing some arthritis, and the doctors were recommending that he spends more time in the south of France. So in the winters, he will spend the time in the cold weather, let's say, not just winter. He will spend time here, and then in the warm weather, he will be in Paris or in Essois, which was his wife's location. So it started with this building. When he moved here, his villa had not been built, and there was a farmhouse. So he started in this farm, which he liked very much, and he made many, I shall say, portraits of this house. In this painting is exhibited at the museum, but this is in production, obviously. He liked it very much, but his wife was unhappy because they had several help. There were ladies who were just helping with chores and household maids, etc. So there was not really enough room for all these people. Plus, they had a kid. Actually, they had three sons, and I cannot remember whether all three were at some point in this house, or only the younger one. Anyway, I think it was only the young one. The other ones may have been out. So there was just too many people. So despite his will, his wife uh, convinced him that this villa needed to be built, and also to match a little bit their friends and everybody else. Socially, it was better viewed than being in a farmhouse. Anyway, the other thing that's kind of strange is that they build a house that has 3 floors with their bedrooms being upstairs, knowing that the man is suffering from arthritis and things are not going to get any better. And there are all these stairs that needs to be scaled in order to reach the studio. And so I don't understand this, why they built a house so unpractical for somebody who's moving to the south with that condition. But anyway, that's what they did. So we can just come in, and there is a nice little plaque, a little etched stone when it says Auguste Renoir, 1841-1919, built this house at Les Collettes in 1907 and lived it during the winters until his death on December 3rd, 1919. He spent the summers at his house in Essois, the birthplace of his wife, Aline Charigot. All right. Now, 1915, she dies. Renoir dies 1919. So Renoir survived his wife. We'll see a little bit about that in a minute. And he says plaque placed on December the 3rd, 1969. That's the date when the house was turned into a museum, I believe. It was in the 60s. And then with the support of Troyes and Islam. Okay, so when we get in, we are actually greeted surprisingly, by three-dimensional works, sculptures. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure that you all heard of Renoir, kind of have an idea about his paintings, but did you know that he sculpted? Well, a lot of people were very surprised when these sculptures came onto the market, because they kind of came late in his career, very late in his career. And like I said, late in his career means that he had already developed arthritis. And earlier I showed you the shape that his hands have taken, the deformity. So I don't know if you're starting to put the two and together as to how somebody with hands this mangled will be able to sculpt anything, let alone what you're seeing right now. Well, this is where some of the revealing is going to happen. And so this floor, actually this room, where the furnace, I believe, used to be, that's where they stuck the firewood and the coal. And also they use this room for the maid to do the ironing of clothes. But then Renoir decided to change this room into a sculptor studio. So this is where these pieces that you see, at least the original pieces, because these are probably, casts in bronze many years later, most likely even after his death. But the original piece, the first original piece, was created in this room. So this piece may have started the whole thing about sculpture and Renoir. Around 1912, 1913, Renoir's dealer, gallows dealer, Ambroise Vollard, pays a visit to Renoir in his villa. And he's probably seeing the works that are being exhibited. He's kind of curious, and then he notices this bust, and he inquires about this, and he's quite surprised to find out that this bust of Claude, which is Renoir's youngest son, was carved by none other than the painter. So Vollard is very interested and says, "What? You did some sculpture? Why don't we build a body of work of your sculptures?" But then Renoir said, "Look at my hand. How do you expect me to do anything like this?" So he is Ambroise Vollard, smart person, very smart, and actually a great friend of all the modern avant-garde artists. Picasso, he was such a good champion of those artists. So he saw definitely a business opportunity here. He says, "You know what? Why don't I maybe ask somebody to help you sculpt these sculptures?" So this is another piece that Renoir had done. But Renoir is doing this just for fun to decorate the house. He's not really thinking of himself as a sculptor, but he's tickled by the idea. So here, for example, this frame or mirror was also carved by Renoir. So Ambroise says, "You know what? Why don't we have someone come and help sculpt this?" So they are thinking of Aristide Maillol. So Aristide Maillol is already an established sculptor. He's actually seen kind of artist that comes after Rodin, of the most celebrated French sculptor, and he's best known with his masterworks that he was various copies are in many museums. It's called Air. Okay, so he says maybe Aristide will come and help you. And Aristide is being tapped, but Aristide says, "You know what? I don't have time really to help my good buddy Renoir, but here I have an assistant. He's absolutely outstanding, and I wouldn't mind lending him to help Renoir build a body of sculptural works." And so Richard Dino comes into the picture. He's a Spanish artist, up-and-coming sculptor, certainly extremely talented. And then he comes 1914, beginning of the First World War, and starts with a portrait of Renoir, almost as how we call it, like to showcase his talent. So he's immediately hired. And the first project that they start working on is Venus. So interesting a choice, Venus. Well, the whole kind of a classical era in ancient Greek sculpture almost, I'd say, almost started with Venus. So, excuse me. So how interesting that they are going to choose this as a subject to begin this new body of work. I've got something in my throat. Well, I'm sorry. I hope this goes away. So, like I said earlier, Renoir is so interested in Rubens, of course, knows very well this topic that's been treated by so many artists. This is The Judgment of Paris, a lovely story that's been, again, been the subject of so many works. Paris, kind of a shepherd, but also happens to be the prince of Troy, somehow selected because he's known for his great judgment somehow. He's selected to choose which of the three goddesses is the most beautiful between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. And all three have bribed uh, Paris to be selected. What Hera is going to give him power. Athena is going to offer wisdom, but Aphrodite is offering the most beautiful woman on earth. And the most beautiful woman on earth that she promises to Paris is none other than, I mean, it's not that, it's not Venus, but Aphrodite is offering that. So she is right there. So it's Helen of Troy. So what's funny about this is that Helen of Troy is married. So basically what Aphrodite is doing is actually offer the married woman to Paris. So what a bizarre idea to do that. So that's a great story, and countless paintings have been made on this subject. And they chose this very subject as their first project. And then he is also going to give us the Paris as a result of that. So we've got Venus and we've got Paris, right? And Venus is the one who's going to win because Paris is going to choose the most beautiful woman among the three offers that we received. And what's interesting about this statue is that he gives us Paris with a Phrygian hat. This hat is not a helmet, it's actually something soft, because remember that he was also a shepherd at the beginning. I won't go into details about as to how a prince can be a shepherd, but perhaps when we are there in person, we can go into those details. It's a fun story. So anyway, here we go. We've got the Phrygian hat with shepherd Paris as our first subjects. We have, of course, other subjects that are here. So the washerwoman is a subject that keeps coming. And I have to say something, that a lot of these statues that you see are based on paintings by Renoir. So the way they work is that Renoir is actually showing the painting, and Richard Richard Guillot is the one sculpting the piece. To my knowledge, Renoir doesn't even touch the stone or the clay or whatever they are sculpting. So he's basically conducting in some ways, or directing, I should say, Richard Dino, but that's how all of his pieces are coming to life. So here, for example, in this room, they, wisely put a painting of a late Renoir painting of a Russian woman right there. This is quite interesting because you can see that she's holding this cloth just like that. You would think that it's because that's how the composition is, but there is also a practical reason. These are acting as columns to hold the arms. There is a lot of engineering that goes in sculpting. So if you remove these, let's say, those arms will be dangling in the air and will be extremely susceptible to break and fall off. So this is actually keeping the composition together in a very clever way. This is Donatello has done things like this as well, but you don't realize it's because the painting itself, her arms are completely out, and this cloth is not actually coming over the ground, but it's coming in the statue. So the washerwoman is a very, very common subject in Renoir's oeuvre. He used to wash clothes. There is a river not too far from his home, so this is something that you could certainly observe. And the reason why I think also that Picasso liked this late period of Renoir so much that he himself had his own classical period, where you had these very giant-like figures or statue-like figures, statuesque. So he probably related very much to what Renoir was doing. And that's probably the reason why also he very much championed Renoir's work, this late period. Very controversial. So Alain Renoir is going to die in 1915, the great chagrin of Auguste Renoir. His full name is actually Pierre-Auguste Renoir, but if you want to shorten that, you can go just Renoir or Auguste Renoir. But the full name is Pierre-Auguste. So he's going to use this painting to create a statue of his wife to go on her grave in Eslo. So he's going to order Richard Pino to work on the composition based on this painting. And then he makes actually another one. So the one that you see here is from 1885. You can see that it's very much drawn. All the contours are very harsh, instead of being feathery. So you will classify this in this classical period, right? And this is now clearly his late period. All of a sudden, the head kind of got shrunk a little bit compared to the body. Here is more proportional. Here we lost it. And of course, everything else, the color, skin, and everything had changed dramatically from here. But so he does another version of the same composition to help Richard Pino to create these versions. So here is the series on this subject. But it doesn't go well because what Renoir is doing is that showing his wife with his child as if all that she did was just bear children and bring children, his kids on earth, so that he didn't maybe project the perfect image of his wife. So he's going to change course, and instead of using that sculptural composition for the grave, he's going to now direct Richard Pino to use this painting for another statue. So here is the bust of Alain Renoir that was then going to be used for the grave. So if we go to a soir, to the cemetery of Madame Renoir, this is what we will see. Okay, so let's continue our exploration. So what time is it? We have about half an hour. I'm watching this because I really want to play the game. So here is Richard Dino in 1964. So Richard Dino, as you can see, is the one who sculpted all this. Renoir directed it, and Renoir offered the compositions, but the hand that built all this clearly was Richard Dino. But now you go to museums, still today, and you can see the wall text or the label, and it says, in this case, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, and small, stooping Russian woman. There is no mention of Richard Dino. And the descendants of Renoir after Renoir's passing in 1919, so children and the grandchildren, they started to make cast reproductions of these sculptures, and they collected all the proceeds from that. And Richard Dino was very hurt by this not being in for this revenue. So he decides to sue the estate to have his share of it, and also request that his name be associated with this estate. So when you go to other museums, like the one in Petit Palais in Paris, and you look at the label, you will see Auguste Renoir et Richard Dino. And this is how the lawsuit, which ended by giving Richard Dino the victory, after that, he was able to receive compensation for all the sales, but also I had requested that his name be added to all the labels associated or presented along with the statues. So some museums still are failing on doing that, but others are very popular. So the museums has many rooms, and a lot of the furniture dates from Renoir's times. Coco or Claude, the son of Renoir, will inherit the house, and he will live there until 1969, I believe, and then just shortly after, it will turn into a museum. This is the dining room table. The maids will go to the market, the farmer's market, and they will bring flowers, they will bring vegetables, and they will just toss all this on the table. Renoir will come, often on his wheelchair, and then we'll make a selection, set aside a few of them for him to make still life composition of those produce or flowers. So this is the scene where you can imagine that it's happening right on this table. Do not expect in a museum like this to find great masterpieces of Renoir. Those masterpieces are in many museums that we make, that you can find. That's where we would go to find those masterpieces. But what you find here is really the soul of Renoir and the soul of those artists. A lot of these places, it's great to see them, to be there, just to absorb that. That's unique. You cannot have this anywhere else. So that experience is to be had in this location. But again, just to be prepared, this is not become to find masterworks of Renoir or other artists' homes. So here is, for example, again, Coco's effigy that Renoir had sculpted when his hands were able to do it. So here's my dad, just wondering when this is going to be over. He was using a lot of patience with me. Albert André was a very close friend of Renoir, and he had his own dedicated room in this villa. And then when we visit that, you can see actually paintings of Albert André. And this one is showing Renoir. painting his family. And then there was a nice portrait also of Renoir there. And then here was the scene. And you can see probably Jean Renoir right there, dressed as a clown, as a Pierrot. And then here it's that's the white Pierrot, and that's posing for that. It was almost a tradition in Renoir to dress up his subjects in various costumes and then paint them in kind of exotic costumes like that. So we left that, of course, also looking in colors in certain exotism. But the Pierrot is also very much ingrained in French culture, thanks to especially this painting, which is so famous. It is at the Louvre. Everybody who knows a little bit about art in France knows this painting, so it's extremely important. There's something about it that was absolutely magical. Was there. I love this painting. The innocence of this fellow just posing like this, just looking us straight, absolutely no contrapost or nothing. And all the other ones seems to make him fun, and they are so cool looking in contrast to this simple hero. So we like that. So here is another example of how we dressed up these children and wherever you can find costumes. The story that Jean was extremely uncomfortable in this outfit and itched him to death and couldn't wait to get it out. He even managed to put the costume of a toreador to Ambroise Vollard, who was such a serious man with very little sense of humor, maybe he did. Anyway, so here we go. Just to make the point as to how much you have to dress up people before you painted them. Here is a copy that Adele did of one of the very famous paintings that happens to be in Washington. And this is definitely in the classical style. As you can see, the face is very smooth, and there is certainly a sense of it's an art style. The contours are very clear. Compare that all the rest here, the surroundings, so different. So Richard Guinaud also had his room, so we can go and see the many paintings. I'm going to go a little bit fast here. See, 20 minutes. So many artists, of course, were inspired by Renoir's painting. They have their own kind of interpretation. And this is our Diffie. And he did so many versions of this. He was trying to capture a painting that's already captured the essence of the scene, and he was going even further after that. There is another painting that's very moving by an artist named Beth, I don't know, from the 60s, that's focusing solely on the hands of the master, or this form hands of the master, and comparing it to the gnarly columns of the olive trees that's on the property, the trunks of the olive trees. So that's the two kind of reflect each other. It's an interesting juxtaposition. And even Picasso gave us in the 70s, this is just 3 days before Picasso died, a tribute, without naming him, calls it vieillard, old man seated, but it's clearly based on this photograph of Renoir. So we have to, like I said, climb stairs to reach the studio, and that's his studio. This is the large studio, the grand studio, the main studio. He has another one all the way to the upper floor next to his bedroom. So that's his wheelchair, and that they redid this room using this painting that exhibited in that room. And they kind of reproduced it. And there is something that's fantastic, is that the French playwright is Sacha Guitry, also an actor, a screenwriter, even a filmmaker. had gone just around 1914, I think, during the war years, so he goes and meets some important artists and does mini documentaries. And so thanks to that, we have actually a motion picture of Renoir in the midst of painting. So look at that. So that is incredible to see Renoir. So they gave him a cigarette. I think it fell down something. So so here he's trying to. So this is 1916. Yeah, 1916, the war. So here he needs help with the given brush for his painting, and the gentleman that's behind him is Coco's Claude, his late last youngest son. And he's helping out. It's amazing to see in my painting. I was blown away when I see this, when I saw this very first time. And this video is projected on the wall of the studio. That's where I saw it for the first time. So here, takes a little break and then smoke in the middle of it. I think it's gonna help me with that cigarette or something. Okay, not in this video. So that's session with the in the back. Okay, that's it. Anyway, the video goes longer. You can go on YouTube and see more of it that I wanted to share. So let's see. So Liz was his first model, with whom he lived 7 years. Then after that, his wife Aline will be another very important model that's going to appear in many of his paintings. And then after that is going to be Gabriel. And Gabriel Renard was a cousin to Aline, to his wife, from Essois. And she was not just the maid, but also the nanny to Jean Renoir, the second son. And she was a very dedicated model to Renoir. And we have many, many paintings. Perhaps the late period of Renoir is best known through his portraits, not exactly portrait, but paintings of this figure, which we all know is actually Gabrielle. In this case, she's named, so can say it's a portrait. So here is Gabrielle with a British artist, Conrad Slade. Gabrielle is going to leave the family mysteriously in 1914. We're not quite sure why. After spending almost 20 years with the family, she will just abruptly leave the family. 1914. So, and then Jean, who was enlisted and went to war and comes back injured back home to find out that she's no longer there, and nobody can explain as to what happened. So there is lots of speculation as to why she left so abruptly. One of them is that maybe this fellow named Conrad Slade, this British painter who came to visit Renoir, maybe an affair started, and then she left to be with him. Doesn't really, obviously, water was the expression. The other thing is that Renoir had a illegitimate child with that Liz, that first girlfriend of his 7 years, and her name was Jeanne. And Gabrielle had been named the guardian of that child, but it was a secret. Aline didn't know about this. So somehow Aline, his wife, finds out about this and finds out that Gabrielle had kept the secret from her all these years, and maybe they had this huge altercation, and then Gabrielle just, like we say in French, claquer la porte, in other words, just slammed the doors and then left the Renoir household. So all of a sudden, Renoir is left without a model, but it's not going to last very long. Matisse is going to put out the word in this that Renoir is looking for a model, and will come this young 16-year-old, 17-year-old girl who arrived by bicycle. I don't understand. Knocked the door and says, "Hey, I'd like to pose." And Renoir immediately is taken by her. Her skin complexion, her features are perfect for him, cheeky, light skins, kind of a reddish hair, perfect. So he's going to be extremely stimulated by her arrival and then start actually doing figurative painting again, which he had abandoned for a while and only focused on landscapes and still life. So here is, and her nickname is Dede. Dede, actually her real name is André Oschling, German name. This is the war years, so it wasn't really good to carry a German name, so she's going to change her name a little bit later. But she's known as Dede. So again, Renoir is going to dress her up in this Spanish costume. There is actually a movie that I highly recommend you go watch. I'm not sure right now where it's available. Sometimes it was on Netflix and all that. And it really talks about this very, very last late period. And you can see the house, the Cannes-sur-Mer, etc. So it's very much in the subject of this lecture. So, and it definitely shows the arrival. And I put so here, she is a still from the movie, and it is Renoir painting her. There is a lot of nudity you can imagine in this movie, like so many French movies are. So here is, for example, André Höchling. So she will change her name to Höchling, also known as David. So it's only like this. And she will end up marrying Jean, the very Jean that I talked to you about, whose nanny had left her. So it's kind of interesting how this happens. So she will end up getting married, and then she will become an actress. She will become an actress in many of Jean's movies until Jean became so famous that he couldn't feature her anymore. So she felt she feels very badly about this, so she would leave Jean they were separate. Okay, so let's leave it at that. And here is the room of Claude Coco. There is a beautiful bust there, of course, by Ciantino. And there is a very interesting painting that you will see there. It's very moving when you know the story behind it. Coco Claude was going to school in Nice, and they and Renoir had rented an apartment there, so that it's easy to take him to school from there. And then the view showed the Colline, and also the old town, which is the old town that you can visit, with many of the church, the bell towers of the sea. And then in the distance over there, you can see something protruding there. If you come close, it's actually an angel with two wings, and it represents the statue that's attached to a grave, because at the top of that hill, there is a cemetery. And Aline was buried there until her spot in Eswa was being prepared. So temporarily, she rested in the Nice cemetery and then near this angel. So that's why Renoir has added this right there, almost to memorialize or bring up Aline in this painting. I think it's very touching. And then this is one of my favorite paintings from his period. It's small, very intimate, and this is how it looks. Two gnarly olive trees with their limbs and branches coming together, and making a frame for this landscapes going all the way to distance. And that's the farmhouse that I showed you as we came in, where the production greeted us. Okay, so let's see. I just want to finish with this painting that we will see in the bedroom all the way upstairs. And it shows that masterpiece from the classical period of Renoir. And this is a work that Renoir started in 1902, but he truly never finished it. But it's never been clear to me as to why Renoir wanted to revisit this composition, even though he had given it seemed like its final version. So this is how that version is. And I have a feeling, this is almost my little feeling, that he wasn't happy, that he wanted to give another version for posterity. Renoir had really a very good sense of what he was leaving behind. So this is how the compositions look. So why is he returning to this composition? Because also you have to understand that this subject matter, news, just frolicking and having a good time on bathing, this bather, the subject of bather is very dear to French culture. So many great masterpieces by past great masters were left on this subject. So he wants to be aligned with all of them on this subject. So I think that he's saying, okay, I did this in the 1880s, but I am not satisfied. This is not the version that I want to be remembered on this very important subject. So I'm going to give it another shot. So he starts another version in 1902, but he never finishes it. So I just wanted to show you the pieces just to tell you how this subject is so important in French culture. So here is what François Boucher is giving us a version of this, of Diana leading her back. It's basically the same subject. You've got a bather of sorts, a female, you've got this nature around it, water here. So this is the sky is here. So, this is a showpiece now. If you're going to use this subject, you have to know how to deal with vegetation, bodies, with news, with skies, with mountains and everything else. So a lot of artists have just use this subject to create their hopefully masterpieces. So Courbet is giving us his realistic version of that, with all of this, again, excessive flesh, because he is a realist. He's not trying to make things idealized. And then we have, of course, the famous Edouard Manet. We've got the bathing female figure here just coming out of this water, but such an odd painting. This is still puzzling people, trying to figure out why she's completely naked, why she's the one coming out of water is not, and why she looks so big. It looks like everything seems to be on the same plane, even though she's so far back. So it's all flattened. I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so much going on here. But that's the subject that's important. And of course, Cézanne. I mean, Cézanne basically built an entire studio so that he can paint his ultimate painting on this subject. And he has made several versions of our debaters. I'm sorry, but what did Picasso did? Picasso did the same thing. These are bathers. Well, coming out of sauna or the prostitute, it doesn't matter. It's the subject. They all have their towels. And let's remember, actually, Aphrodite, the most famous version of Aphrodite or Venus, is a type of bather of sorts. I mean, she's coming out of the foams of the sea. So this is the subject. It's an incredibly important subject. In the classical era, Aphrodite this is so important. She's coming out of her bath and she's trying to cover herself as badly as she's doing and tantalizing and exciting male viewers all over. And this is what basically is at the very beginning of classical Ere we're talking 450 or so BC. So this is where we are. So it's extremely important. This subject is incredibly so for an artist to really leave a mark of significance for posterity, it needs to be perhaps on the subject. So he is going to give us another shot of it. The Bathers, 1918. It's almost obsessive. At the very end, he's giving us this version, and actually one of his greatest spirit insults, at least of this large size. And he will say to his children, please donate this to the Louvre. What was he thinking? We thought that maybe he was ready for the Louvre. So yes, the kids go to the Louvre and say, oh, our daddy's kindly giving this painting to you guys. Well, the Louvre says, no, thank you very much. I think we'll think about it. So they turn him down. Well, they knew better a few years later and come back after Renoir was dead and say, yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it from the. So now it's at the Musée d'Orsay. Well, of course, this was definitely targeted by our little group of people. Okay, father is started to look outside, hoping that we get out of here. Let's get out of here. So, of course, outside was this probably the masterpiece, the most important piece that came out of the Pierre-Auguste collaboration with Venus Victus in 1917. And so it's the same subject, Venus is receiving the apple as a victorious, most beautiful, victory. And then here is our apple that she's holding on that statue. All right, well, listen, thank you very, very much. We have just a few minutes. Well, the lecture is finished now. We're going to play a game. You're more than welcome to stay. And now unmute yourselves, please. Everybody unmutes themselves because we're going to shout whether what I'm going to show you belongs to the Impressionist vein, to the classical period, or to the late period. Okay, it's kind of fun. So unmute yourself and just shout. All right, it doesn't matter who shouts, who doesn't shout, but okay. So let's see. I see that a lot of people are still muted. Please unmute yourself because you want to participate in this. This is what the fun begins. So here is the first one. All right, so let's start. Okay.
Late.
Late.
Yeah, late.
Yes, absolutely late. The sculptural body, those warm, glowing colors, flesh tones. Yes. Late is late. What's the year? 1895, 1900. Why?
Yeah, it is late.
Okay. What's next?
Impressionist.
Impressionist. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Impressionist. Let's see the year. 1877. That sounds good. The first Impressionist exhibition, 1874. So it's almost 2 years after. Makes perfect sense.
Turn it off, please.
Brushworks. Okay. How about this?
I'd say late.
Late. Absolutely.
Late.
Yes. This full, this wavy figure is definitely on the late side. That's going to be actually Madame Renoir, Aline. Okay, now be careful.
Classical.
Yeah.
It's classical. Yes, it's classical. And we have to look at their faces. They are like porcelain-like, very well defined. The rest is super impressionistic, so we can totally get confused with that. Yeah. So when we have this clear, defined contour, especially on the face, hands, we have a good chance. Okay, what's going on here?
Impressionist.
Impressionist. Absolutely impressionist. Very loose, very fluid brushwork. Makes perfect sense.
Late.
Okay.
Late.
Yeah, it is late. It is late. It's good. It's good. What's the year? 18.
No,
it's
not.
No, this is not late. No, this is not late. I'm looking at the face. I mean, put this together a little bit fast.
Classic?
I wouldn't put this in late at all.
Classical.
It's classical.
Classical.
Look at those eyes.
Classical.
And
Yeah,
this, yeah.
classical.
And the body is really, the skin is very well defined here. So this is a nice little mistake. Thank you very much. Okay, what's going on here?
Impressionist.
Impressionist.
Yeah,
Impressionist.
impressionist, but look at the face. I agree with you
Yeah.
that it's impressionist,
Yeah.
but there is a
It
lot
looks
of,
classical, yeah.
it looks classical here, but look at the contrast between the treatment of the older person
Yeah, definitely.
and then the younger
Right.
one.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, I'd say, almost a transitional period. So
Mm.
this is what is happening.
It's transitioning.
Between.
1882, 1883, the classical really sets in, but there is a period of transition. So this is, so
Impressionist.
it's impressionist, but look at the year, 1881. So if you had said classical, I would have gone for it.
Looks classical.
Classic.
This is more classical, yeah. And look at the year on this one.
Same thing. Yeah.
So it's very close to the one that we just saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, late.
Late.
Late. I mean, as you can see, the late is easier to recognize.
Because it looks like fuzzy. I mean, in a
yeah,
way.
that fuzziness, the color scheme is also very distinctive, and the bodies are just rounded, blended, or not. Okay, so this we don't have a female figure here, but look at the colors. When he's using this kind of very warm, hot colors.
More like a late period.
Yeah, it is a late period. Look at the year 1908,
Mm-hmm.
and it's none other than Ambroise Vollard again.
Mm-hmm. So
Whoa.
late period.
Yeah, it is a late period.
Look at all that material. You know.
Mm. Beautiful.
All right, now watch this one. Everybody knows this piece, one of my favorites.
Oh.
Impressionist.
I don't know the face though.
I don't know.
Classic.
Should be
Transitional.
classical.
Classic.
Transitional.
Classic.
Yeah.
Okay, give now try to give me a year on this. Give it a year. Now that you guys know a little bit when these things are.
1880s.
1882.
1882. Okay, very good. Let's see.
Yeah.
1882. We have an expert with us. This is perfect. Absolutely right. We have a classical. All right. What's this?
Classical?
That is
No.
Impressionist.
Impressionist.
No, it's late.
Yeah.
here.
Late.
Yeah,
Okay, we are all over the place at this point.
Yep.
Absolutely all over.
I
So
think it's late.
No,
Doesn't-
if we had late,
No,
we
it's
would have
not
had a
late.
much
That's more impressionist.
cooler,
I
bigger
I think it's impressionistic.
body.
Yeah, I
It's
do too.
impressionist.
Impressionist. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
classic, I think it's
Drifting.
transitional.
And
Yeah.
remember the colors with the late period. It's very warm oranges. We don't have those.
Oh, it goes.
So it's even 1870s, so early. Okay, another one on the difficult side. Let's see how we're gonna.
Oh, that
No,
looks
the
more
late
classical.
early kids, Classical,
That's classical.
classical.
And late. I thought so.
I
No,
put
classical.
impressionist and classical on this one.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
definitely put it in both ways. It could be
Yeah.
just fine. Yeah. Okay, now look at that. So
Oh,
this is
wow. Classical,
Yeah.
isn't it?
What?
Late.
late. Look at the colors.
Yeah.
This is again, this is the super warm colors.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at the figures. They seem to be kind of overblown, and that's very much in the late game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I say.
And that's Gabrielle. Here she is.
Yeah, but
You
it's
recognize
interesting
her.
that you say that with the colors, but it doesn't have that kind of fuzziness of the late period.
I agree with you that
Except
for
the
this
background.
one,
Yeah.
he did I mean, since he was doing these very obvious portraits, he is choosing to make the faces as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
But there are some very many elements here that suggest late ones. I mean, but it's not that late. It's 1896. So anything past 1890 is going to be definitely on the late side. But I agree that there is a lot of defined feature here that we need to configure.
Really nice. And it looked to me more classical.
Classical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say classical too. See, it's late, but it's on the late classical. 18. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. And look at the paintings in the back. Do you recognize who they
Yeah,
are?
I mean, those are
Degas.
clearly classical.
Those are the guy. I
Yeah,
agree with you. Now, we could definitely think that it could be classical, but it's look at the year. I mean, this
I
is
know.
well
Yeah,
past this
that would be
classical period.
great, but yeah.
So when he's doing portraiture, you see these people are named. It's clearly a commission.
Mhm.
He is applying and giving more details because he's second guessing and thinking that that's what's going to be like. So he's pandering a little bit. So Renoir is interesting in that regard. So this is very much.
That's
the
late.
whole
More like the late
is-
period, yeah.
it's totally
Oops.
late.
That's Gabrielle, isn't it?
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
it's
Gabrielle
Gabrielle.
and she, beautiful painting.
Mhm. That's late, yeah. Nice.
Hmm. The colors
Impressionist.
look late, but the face is
Impressionist.
classical. Yeah,
Impressionist
Sketch of a
elements.
finished.
Classic, yeah, classic.
classical. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, look at this. You're right to think late or classical. There are elements of both in here.
Yeah.
It's again on one of those more like transitional period.
oh, it looks
Late.
late, right?
Right.
Okay, bravo.
Yeah, late,
You all
really.
you all did it. Thank you so much.